Hey guys, so today I'm very excited to show you how to make my homemade barbecue sauce. Although I really shouldn't say mine, this is actually my uncle's homemade barbecue sauce. My uncle is an executive chef. His name is Jack DeCarlo. He's the executive chef at the DoubleTree over in Rosement, Illinois. And in a previous job, he ran a restaurant that specialized in barbecue, and he developed his own barbecue sauce recipe and also a dry rub recipe that I have permission to share both of these. I'll do a separate video about the rub when I'm getting ready for a big 4th of July barbecue that we're having coming up. But today I'm prepping a very, very large batch of this barbecue sauce. So like I said, I'm very excited to share it. This is just an incredible sauce in my humble opinion. My Uncle Jack calls this the mother sauce of barbecue because it's a base that you can add all sorts of other flavors to if you want. You know, this is a sweet style barbecue sauce. It's not a vinegar style. But once you've got this going, you can take it kind of in any direction you want. But it's pretty good just the way it is. So I'm excited to share it with you guys, and I'm going to start by giving you a quick tour of the ingredients. So here are the ingredients. Try not to be alarmed at the volume. I'm making a quadruple batch today. But just going through them, there's some malt vinegar that goes in at the end. We've got ketchup, we've got tomato puree, we've got dark corn syrup, we've got molasses, we've got 2 kinds of jam here. My uncle's recipe just calls for grape jelly, but that's definitely a spot that you can play with. I'm going to mix some raspberry jam and some grape jelly, and then also some honey. And also we're going to start with sauteing a couple onions along with these chile de arbol peppers. So those are the basic ingredients, other than the peppers that I like to add. So these aren't part of the base either, although I think adding these smoked poblanos, what I like to do is I smoke them out of my grill, I chop them up, and I puree them into the sauce. I think the poblanos make a fantastic part of the base sauce. And so I usually do one with just poblanos in it, and then I'll use some of these spicier peppers like jalapenos and habaneros to make a spicier suicide type version. So the first step of the process is to start sweating these onions, and since I'm doing a quadruple batch, I've got 24 ounces of onion chopped up here. Added that to my pan with just enough olive oil to coat the bottom of the pan. And the other thing I'm going to do immediately is throw in all these chile de arbol. Alright, so I've got all my onions and chilies in there. Now this recipe from my uncle, it calls for about 8 dried chilies for every 6 ounces of onion. I'm doing a quadruple recipe. I've got 24 ounces of onion. Should be about 32 chilies. I've probably got 40 plus in there. But this sauce does end up, you know, having a very nice sweetness to it. So even though these will add a bit of heat, you know, we do pull the chilies out. They won't actually go in the sauce. They just add some flavor at this point. It won't be too much heat. This will still be the sweet version, and it'll only get spicy when we add the jalapenos and habaneros later. So anyway, this is going to cook down with all those onions. It's going to take at least 10 minutes, I think, to get the onions tender. And just when they're starting to brown, we'll start adding the other ingredients. So while those onions are cooking down, I'm going to get these peppers ready to go on the grill. I definitely overbought on the peppers, but I am making a huge batch. So I think I probably will use all of these poblanos. I've got 7 or 8 beautiful big poblanos here. And these are not spicy at all. They just add this great smoky, peppery flavor that balances the sweetness. But then for the spicier versions, well, actually I'm not sure how hot these Fresnos are. This was an experiment. I bought these serranos when I couldn't find any jalapenos at Whole Foods. Then I went to Dominic's and I found these gorgeous jalapenos, so I got a bunch of those too. And I also have the habaneros. These are super, super spicy and will only go in the suicide version. But anyway, I'm just going to cook all these up, and then I'll have some options for how I want to make the different varieties of the sauce. There's a 3-step process anytime you're doing vegetables on the smoker. First step is to prick them with a fork. The second step will be to cover them in oil, and the third step will be to season them. And I'm going to use a little bit of my uncle's dry rub recipe, which is really, you know, sort of an all-purpose rub. You can use it for beef, pork, chicken, veggies. And I've got some of it pre-made already. I'll show you guys what that recipe actually looks like when I do a video for the actual meats that I'm going to prepare for our 4th of July barbecue coming up. For now, just pricking. Alright, so I've got all the vegetables with at least a couple of fork pricks in them, and now I'm just going to drizzle some olive oil over all of these guys. And then I'll just turn them a little bit to coat, and then sprinkle some rub on there. Just get my hands dirty. Oh, that looks beautiful. Well, here's the rub that I already had pre-made. Now I'm just going to do a nice dusting over all these veggies. This rub has paprika in it, and some Cajun seasonings, and onion and garlic salt, and lemon pepper, and one or two other secret ingredients that I will put in a video eventually, I promise. It's a very nice rub. And that should be enough. We just want to just add a little seasoning to the outside of our peppers here. Alright, now I'm going to do this again. Alright, there we go. These peppers are ready to go on the smoker. Alright, so I just added the veggies to the smoker. You can see I've got some chicken down there too that I'm doing a test run on, but you always want your bigger things closer to the heat. These poblanos are closer to my heat because they will be hotter over there, obviously. They can handle it. These little serranos don't want quite as much heat, and I got a water bath there too to deflect some of the heat and to kind of stabilize. Going to want to be at about 250 for an hour with these veggies. So now that the onions are ready, from here it's pretty simple. Just add all of the ingredients in the order that they will be listed in the video description recipe. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to add is the olive oil. The recipe calls for 2 ounces of olive oil, so I've quadrupled that to 8 ounces. Now I was sauteing the onions over a medium heat, like a 3 on my gas range. I've kicked it up to 4 now, because I'm going to start adding stuff that's cold, and it'll take a while before we get hot in here again. It's not cold, all this is room temperature, but it's obviously not hot. Okay, so after the olive oil, the next thing we want to add is the jelly. Now, the recipe calls for 20 ounces of jelly, so I'm going to use 80, and I'm going to do a combination of this raspberry jelly, and this is a 40-ounce jar, and this grape jelly, this is a 30-ounce jar. So I need to do 2/3 of this jar and about half of the other one. So that was about 20 ounces of grape jelly, and I've got about 20 ounces of this raspberry spread, they're calling it. That looks like about half. Try and get that all incorporated before I move on to the ketchup. So against 20 ounces of jelly, you want 32 ounces of ketchup. Each of these Heinz bottles are 44 ounces. And so if I put all 3 of these in, that'll just be, I think, about 4 or 8 ounces more than I need. And it's hard to get all the ketchup out of these bottles, so pretty sure if I just casually unload all 3 bottles, that'll be just about the perfect amount of ketchup. Alright, that's all our ketchup, so I'll get this stirred in, and then it's on to the tomato puree. So now we're ready for the tomato puree, and since I'm doing a quadruple batch, I'm going to add 4 28-ounce cans of tomato puree. 1, 2. I hope this pot's going to be big enough. I'm not sure I've done a quadruple batch before. I think we're going to make it. This is a lot. And 4. Okay. Get that mixed in. And then the sweet stuff. As if that jelly wasn't sweet enough. Okay, so now we're on to molasses. And the proportions would be 16 ounces of molasses. I'm doing 4 times that amount. Each of these bottles is 12 ounces. I have 5 of them, which I believe is going to leave me about 4 ounces of molasses short, but I think we'll be okay. You can see that molasses bringing us into a darker, more mahogany color. It's just beautiful. So now we're ready for corn syrup, and this is the same proportion as the molasses, 16 ounces and times 4 in my case. So I have 4 of these bottles, which are conveniently 16 ounces each. Whew. We are almost running out of room in this pot. Maybe a triple batch would have been better, but you live and learn. And now the final sweetener, and according to my uncle, this is one of the secrets, is some pure honey. And that would be at about 4 ounces. And so for my quadruple recipe, I'm going to put in 16 ounces. This bottle is 1 pound 8 ounces, so I need to put in 2/3 of the bottle, which looks like just a bit more. And now the finishing touch is malt vinegar. The recipe calls for 4 ounces, so that means 16 ounces for me. This bottle is 12 ounces, so I need just a little for my second bottle. So I got the end of my malt vinegar in there, and now I am incorporating this slowly. Now, unfortunately, I did go right up to the rim of my pot, so in hindsight, this was not a big enough pot for a quadruple recipe. What I'm going to do is get this stirred in to the point where I feel that it's all evenly incorporated, and then I'm going to pour this into 2 pots. Where we're done adding ingredients now, the only step left is to simmer it for 30 minutes. And especially in a pot this size, it'll take me 30 minutes to even get it up to a simmer. But like I said, once I get it all incorporated, I'm just going to split it between 2 pots. And then you'll really be able to see what the color looks like. This still has all the vinegar on top, so it's not quite the dark, beautiful color we're going to end up with. Alright, so I transferred some of the sauce into my other pot over there, and now I've got them both over medium heat, and once they get up to a simmer, I'm going to make sure they stay at just a nice gentle simmer and let them simmer for at least 30 minutes, and I think up to an hour might even be better. After just over an hour on the smoker, some of the peppers were looking great, some of the other ones weren't quite done yet, so I pulled these off. I'm going to give the others about 10 more minutes. So I just pulled the rest of the peppers off the grill, and now I'm going to let these cool for probably half an hour before I chop them and clean them and start to incorporate them into the sauce. Well, actually they'll cool for more than that because the sauce is only just getting to a simmer now. You can see a couple of bubbles starting to form. So we're just about simmering, and now I want to let it go for at least another half hour to let it thicken up a little bit and pull some more flavor out of these dried chilies and let everything just continue to incorporate. Now I want to make sure I stir this every few minutes, at least every 5 minutes, so we get a nice even heat through there. Sauce has been simmering for about 45 minutes at this point, so I'm going to take it off the heat and get ready to incorporate the peppers. So before I start to incorporate the peppers, the first thing I've got to do is pull out these dried chilies. They have now served their purpose. They incorporated a nice amount of base heat into our sauce. So I'm just going to use this little spider basket thing to fish out all of the dried chilies. Trying to leave as much of the sauce behind as possible, of course. Okay, so I've removed the chilies from both of my pots here, the dried ones, and you know, if I wanted, I could be done right now. This sauce is already tasting delicious. This is really your base mother barbecue sauce right here. But the modification I like to do is to add these poblano peppers. Like I said, they don't add too much heat, so I'm going to chop up all of my poblanos and incorporate them into the sauce and use that as my base, and then start taking some of these other peppers to play with the spice level a bit. So the first step is to chop up these poblanos and get them cleaned up. And so I'm going to chop the top off, and then what I want to do is remove everything on the inside here. I want to get rid of all the seeds and the little fleshy bits. Alright, so I slice it in half, clean out the inside, and now I'm just going to chop this up into fairly small pieces that I'll be able to blend in with a handheld blender when I add them to the sauce. So here's all the smoked poblanos all chopped up and ready to incorporate. Alright, so I've got my poblanos here, and I'm going to try to get a proportional amount of them into each of my vats of sauce. Jennifer's laughing at me in the background because I didn't make a very large amount of sauce. So that, let's see, that seems like a good amount into there. So I'm going to stir them down, and then I'm going to use my little Cuisinart handheld blender to get those peppers fully incorporated. Taste. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I really do recommend the poblano peppers. It's okay if you don't have a smoker. You can just roast them in the oven. But the peppers, not a hot pepper or something like a poblano, just as kind of a balance to the sweetness of the sauce, really just creates a beautiful flavor. Then later we'll add the spicy ones, and that'll be fun too. But just the poblanos as part of your mother barbecue, I think, is mother barbecue sauce is a fantastic step. So I'm going to do the same thing in my other pot over here, and then we'll start playing with jalapenos and such. So I decided I'm going to take my smaller pot of sauce here and just call this finished with just the poblano peppers in it. I know I've got some folks that aren't real into heat that I want to cater to for our 4th of July barbecue. So the final step is to pour it through this fine mesh sieve, just to get out any little bits of pepper or seeds or chunks of onion that didn't get blended in fully, so that we've got a nice smooth velvety sauce to serve when we get there. So it'll take a minute for this to work through the sieve. I'm going to run all this pot through it, and that'll be our sweet version of the sauce. So actually the trick is you want to push this through with a spatula because the sauce is pretty thick. So it'll take a long time to filter through the sieve, but if I push it with the spatula, all the big chunks will still stay out and the smooth sauce will go through. So now I've portioned my sweet sauce into these handy Ziploc containers that Jennifer always has on hand. And these two smaller ones will go straight into the freezer. And this one I'll leave in the fridge and have ready for the 4th of July. So the rest of the sauce now is going to get some heat. And what I'm going to do is add a combination of jalapenos, Fresnos, and Serranos to all of the remaining sauce, and that is going to take it from sweet with a little bit of heat to being pretty darn spicy. Nice combination of all three of these peppers. Now I'm going to do that to all of it, and then I'm going to take just a little bit out of there and add habaneros to that as well for the suicide flavor. So these peppers I'm going to clean just the same way I did the poblanos. Chop off the top, chop them in half. Take out all the insides, because the seeds and this fleshy bit is where a lot of the heat of the jalapeno is. If I put all of this in, that's where you get this sort of burn the tip of your tongue heat, and that's not what we want in our barbecue sauce. If I take all this out and I only put in the flesh, it's going to be that heat that sort of just hits you towards the end of the bite. It's a little more in the background. It's still going to be spicy, but it's more balanced that way if you just get all the heat and the flavor from the flesh instead of the insides and the seeds. So I've never actually used them before, but I decided I love the look of these Fresno peppers. So I chopped up all the Fresnos, and I did quite a few of the jalapenos, but only a couple of the Serranos because I decided those are a pain to chop up or to clean being as thin as they are. So I'm going to start with these peppers and incorporate them, in increments, because you want to be careful not to go overboard with the spice level. And, I haven't done this frequently enough to know exactly how many peppers I need per volume of sauce, but even then I feel like the spiciness level of peppers is variable enough that it's probably always important to taste as you go. But this should be a really good start. Alright, so there's my first round of jalapenos, serranos, and Fresno peppers, and I'm going to go incorporate these into the sauce. Okay, so given the large volume of sauce that I have here, I'm pretty sure I can put in all of these hot peppers without making it too spicy, but we will see. What that did for us. Oh, that's pretty good. Yep. Heat comes at the end, which is what we're looking for. Now, I want this to be the spicy sauce. Like you say, if you want a spicy sauce, try this one. Probably put a few more jalapenos in there. So I actually added all of the rest of my jalapenos, which was 5 or 6 more. And now we've got some serious heat going on here. It's not overpowering, but it's definitely spicy. That's what I'm looking for. So time to strain most of this sauce, and I'll leave just a little bit to add the habaneros to. And there we have the strained spicy sauce. So now it's time to chop a couple habaneros. Same deal as with the other ones. Alright, so I just chopped up all 6 of my habaneros, and we'll see how many I can get in there. So I started with half of those habaneros. I'm going to blend them in and see what happens. Alright, going to give it a taste. I'm just a little afraid. Wait for it. Yeah, there it comes. It's hot. It's not suicide yet though. The rest of those are going in. So I'm actually going to go ahead and chop up some of those serranos that I didn't use and add them to the suicide, because it's really not suicide yet. It got spicy, but it's not suicide yet. However, I'm going to sign off for the video now because it's getting late and I'm getting tired, and I just want to wrap this up as quickly as I can. Hopefully, by watching all of that, you've gotten the idea of how to make your own barbecue sauce and, you know, kind of customize it and adjust it to your own preferences or the preferences of your guests. And before I sign off, I will do one on-camera tasting of the spicy sauce, because this seems to be a popular view. So here it is. This is the medium level, what I would call spicy. I just love everything about this barbecue sauce. I really got to say, if you're going to take one recipe from DisorganizedDon, take this one. As my Uncle Jack likes to say, you cannot get this in a can. See you next time. So just one final shot of the sauce all packaged up. Over here is the sweet, here is the spicy, and this is the super spicy. It actually never got to the suicide level. It's not a novelty spice. It's actually going to be edible, I think, by people that really enjoy some heat. So, turned out well. Thanks for watching, and good luck if you try this yourself.